Hello and welcome to World Business. Today we dive deep into a digital gold rush shaping the future of gaming, finance and youth entrepreneurship. Once thought of as a playground for kids, Roblox has evolved into a billion-dollar creative economy where teenagers are not just playing but becoming millionaires. Well, a recent frenzy of high-stakes acquisitions, including a $3 million deal for Blue Lock Rivals, has thrust the platform into the financial spotlight. With new transfer rules in place, companies are racing to buy up the most popular titles, some developed in bedrooms by coders still too young to drive. Well, the top 10 creators on Roblox reportedly pulled in $36 million each last year, and with Roblox on pace to pay out more than $1 billion in 2025, a new wave of creators is rewriting the rulebook of digital monetization. But what does this mean for the future of intellectual property, platform economics, and youth protection? Well, joining me is David Birch, an internationally renowned author, fintech strategist, and board-level advisor, a leading voice on digital identity and money. David has long championed innovation in the digital financial ecosystem. David, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us again on the show. This is a fascinating one for me. My son is absolutely obsessed with Roblox, and what I saw when I sort of took some interest in it was not what I expected. There's classical music playing, gardens being set up. It very different to what I anticipated, but it's caught the imagination of so many young people, hasn't it? And teens now, they're cashing out, some of them for millions of dollars, even before they've graduated high school. Do you think this is the future or part of the future when it comes to creator-driven economies?
I think actually it's a very important window into the future because those teens who are in those immersive environments now are the next generation of consumers. And so when you think, well, who's going to be buying financial services in 3, 4, 5 years' time? It's people that right now are in Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite. They're used to being in these immersive environments. They're used to interacting with other people in those environments. It's very natural for them. So I think it's a window into the future from that point of view. But I think you've highlighted something else, which is also a window into the future in terms of, if you like, the post-industrial economy, where it's information, data that's the real productive resource. And I think it's teaching us a few things about that as well.
I think it's a very interesting point you make, because the other thing that I've noticed, not just about my own 9-year-old, but about various young people that seem to report on this, is that it's not just the gameplay that they're now very used to, it's also the in-game currency. So Robux seems to be a currency that many young people understand and are comfortable with just as much as more traditional currencies that they use day to day.
I think they don't distinguish between the two, which I think tells you something interesting about the direction of money. I think there's a couple of points to make about this. First of all, it's important to understand this is not new. So that people have been studying and writing about this for a long time. In fact, I mean, it's a trivial thing, but the very first blog post I ever wrote, which was 20 odd years ago, was about, because I discovered that people that were mining virtual gold in computer games in China were getting paid more than people that were mining actual gold in China. And I wrote a blog post about this. And there were economists, Edward Castronova springs to mind as one of the first people to study this seriously, who've looked at how these economies have developed. So there is actually a lot of understanding about what's going on in that space. I think what's changing now is you have other technologies, because you've got things like, I mean, I'm not saying it's the same thing, but because you've got things like Bitcoin, money is kind of is being questioned again. So the idea that you only have this one kind of money, which is, comes from the government and the central bank, and that's, if you've grown up in a world where you've used World of Warcraft gold for 10 years to get what you want, that traditional world seems a little bit unnatural. So I think they're beginning to experiment and explore. Now, what that means, I think, depends on where we want to take it. So, the companies that operate these games, for them, having these in-game currencies makes for a real economy inside the game. Whether you want that economy to spill outside the game, that's a more complicated issue. This happened with World of Warcraft in the old days, because people would engage purely to get the money so they could sell it on exchanges. It distorted the gameplay and made it not fun for people. So there are some complexities there.
Dave, it's very interesting that point you make about the extent to which transactions exist outside the game. Could you also argue that within the game itself, more and more elements are coming in, people are existing in those virtual worlds for longer? Whether it's inside a more expansive game or outside the game, is there going to be a need for more financial infrastructure, more frameworks, protections around some of these currencies, do you think?
As a general topic, you don't want people being cheated and taken advantage of, especially children. So, clearly there are rules that need to be applied to this kind of thing. And again, this is hardly a new observation by me, but you're quite right. Now, you've put up on the screen there digital identity, and I think this is where we need to start. So we need an appropriate digital identity infrastructure in place, so that you know who the creators are, who the buyers are, who the sellers are, who's participating. Now, by that, I don't mean that everyone would have to present their driving license before they can do something in Fortnite or Minecraft. But what I do think is we need some basic validation in place. So in other words, if I want to go and take part in, let's say there's an area for people from 13 to 18 to come and build something, then you need me to prove that I'm between 13 and 18. And you don't need to know who I am. You don't need to know where I live. You don't need to know anything about me. You just need to know that I'm between 13 and 18.
And Dave, sorry to interrupt. But how do you go about doing that? How can I prove that I'm 49 without telling you who I am and where I live and those basic details?
Well, a very obvious way to do that would be through your bank. So you could easily imagine a situation where I go to create an account at Roblox, I get bounced to my bank, I log in at my bank, the bank sends Roblox a little cryptographic token which says, yes, we know who this person is and they're over 18. And that's it. It doesn't contain anything else. That's all that's there. So that's what the game gets. And if the game gets hacked, which is not unknown, all the hackers get away with is a little thing from my bank which says they know who I am and I'm over 18. It doesn't tell them who I am. It's not like I've given them my credit card details or something. So, we have a whole range of technologies that we didn't have a generation ago to do these kind of things safely. So that's the first step there, I think. So you need the identities in place. And you need the marketplaces where these trades can happen, like the games. And obviously you need some rules there, but it's in the game's interest that people aren't cheated, because otherwise they'll stop playing the game. Games are incentivized to make those things work properly. And then you need to decide what you're going to do with the value that's being exchanged. Are we going to make it a real digital asset which exists outside the game and can be speculated on, traded, exchanged for other things? Or are we going to keep it inside the game? And there are arguments both ways. As a parent who's used to, you're in this cycle, right? So you give your children pocket money, they immediately turn the pocket money into Roblox, Robux. Well, why didn't you just give them Robux? I mean, why not? I mean, if they're prepared to do chores for Robux, great.
Yes, yeah, very much so, very much so. It's interesting as well what you said about the role of banks, but potentially, so I've heard a lot of arguments around this area along the lines of, well, we need to sort of disintermediate the banks, you know, we democratize, we don't need big old-fashioned third parties. But actually, it seemed to me what you're saying that there is a key role for those big trusted names, those institutions, but it just might be not what it was before.
Correct. So both of those things are simultaneously true, Guy. You can see banks being disintermediated for some kinds of financial services, like payments, for example. If you can just send around, you know, stable coins on the internet, you know, why do you need a bank account? But banks have another role in society, which is to do with trust. And I think actually that in the future, that will be a more substantial role for them.
And what about this issue of financial literacy? I mean, there's an awful lot been written, said, researched on this issue. There's different points of view about gamification, the extent to which practice and gameplay can help or hinder young people. What's your perspective on the role of games like this when it comes to giving people those good skills to make sure they don't fall into trouble in later life?
You know, to be honest, Guy, I'm beginning to change my mind about this a little bit, because I previously, I would have said financial literacy is very poor. Anything we can do to increase financial literacy is a good thing. And games are a potential mechanism for doing that, which is true, you know. But actually, I think the arrival of AI is beginning to change thinking about that sort of thing. Because I think in future, if your kids are 13 now, when they're 18, they're not going to be choosing which savings account or which credit card or whatever, because their AI is going to be doing it for them. So does it make more sense to invest money in teaching financial literacy, or does it make more sense to invest in regulated bots that act on behalf of people to increase their financial health? And I'm starting to edge towards the latter. I think it might be better to teach people how to use AIs than to try to teach them financial literacy. I mean, I get confused when I'm talking to my pension advisor. What it must be like when you're 18 years old, I have no idea.
I mean, I guess, would people worry that we're handing too much control over to essentially robots? Is there how would people not lose control and you know? Give us your view on that.
I understand the question, Guy, but I have to tell you that at this instant, 3 of the top 5 uses of AI in the United States are for therapy and personal development. So the idea that people will use bots for psychotherapy, which is interesting and important and changes their life, but they won't use them to choose a savings account. It seems laughable to me. So,
I mean, that's...
So look, you've got 2 things there. You've got how do we protect children, and I think we know how to do that. We might not have done it in all cases, but we sort of know what needs to be done. And then there's how do you help those markets to function? And I think, you know, broadly speaking, we know how to do that. And then there's what does that mean in the wider world? Where I think it's potentially disruptive in some places.
How do we protect kids, though? Because it's a difficult task for the regulators, isn't it? Because one of the benefits of these sorts of games is that they kind of they foster entrepreneurialism. You know, you can go off and create your own world, your own versions. You can monetize that. Obviously, that's got some good aspects to it. But on the same, by the same token, people also need to be protected from.
But when your child created their account, it doesn't seem unreasonable to me that you would be required to log in, perhaps via your bank, and identify yourself and say, I am the parent or guardian this child is aged, X, rather than give away any personal details. What you absolutely don't want is children having to give away all of their personal details in order to access these things, because you don't know who they're talking to. If they go into a game that's meant for kids from 9 to 12, you want to know that everyone else in that game is a kid from 9 to 12, or an authorized adult supervisor or whatever. And to me, given the technology that we have, that doesn't seem that complex to me. We just need a will to sort of pull it all together.
David, finally, I just want to get your overview on this. We constantly talk in the world of technology about things changing faster than we ever thought, Moore's law, various other laws that are quoted. What's your sense overall of the extent to which we're shifting when it comes to our financial interactions, digital versus the physical world, if you like?
I think you're looking at a generation that have grown up in a completely digital world. I was looking at some statistics the other day. This is France, not the UK. But I was looking at some statistics for a bank in France. And they already have a situation where a third of their customers never ask for a physical card, a third of their new customers. So when you sign up as a new customer, you're given the option of, you'll get a debit card that's loaded into your Google wallet or Apple wallet, and you get the option of applying for a physical card. And a third of the customers don't apply for the physical cards anymore. I was telling that story to somebody the other day, and he said, "Oh my God, I forgot to order I think it was Monzo. I forgot to order my Monzo card," because he's been using it in the wallet and it works fine. And I'm old and I had this myself. The other day, I wanted to find my Amex Platinum card because I wanted to weigh it, because I wanted to find out if it was made of platinum or not. Don't ask. I have a very boring life. So I decided I would weigh my Amex Platinum card, which is a card I use all the time. It's my main business card. I use it every single day.
And is it? I can't. The suspense is killing me. Is it really platinum?
No, it's not. If it was made out of platinum, it would cost like $9,000 or something. I don't remember. But it took me about 45 minutes to find it. And it did make me think, someone's gone to all the trouble of designing this lovely card and making it out of metal and testing it and making sure it all works. And they send it to me and I just chuck it in a drawer and use it on my phone all the time. Well, your child's generation don't see the physical card as part of the process at all. It just never occurs to them.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. Okay, well, I'm sure that you'll help us keep track of those developments as they continue to keep happening.
I think you can learn a lot from what's going on in those immersive virtual worlds. They are windows into the future. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, as you say, very, very different perspective that we get from younger people than to those perhaps that you and I have been used to. Dave, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for fitting us in your busy schedule. David Birch there for us.
Lovely to talk to you, Guy.
And that wraps up this week's edition of World Business. Until next time, from all of us here at World Business, thanks for watching.